we recorded the last one last week. So just hopefully, I think it should all be working now and recording. Fantastic. So you can all tune back in and watch it at a later date. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick sort of update, I guess, from the community sport area gone on in the last week. In terms of clubs, we've continued to support our clubs where we can. We're getting a little bit of engagement from our clubs now, starting, especially since yesterday, around the COVID level 3 announcement. Clubs starting to ask questions about whether or not they can or cannot run their activities. So, you know, no doubt within this group, we all have a very clear understanding of what cannot occur now under level 3. In terms of spaces and places, again, the reviews continuing as per usual. One thing that's developed over the last week is, you know, that the status quo facility network is what it is. And so that part of the review is, you know, isn't affected whatsoever by this COVID situation. But moving forward, our priority projects and our priority areas of focus for the next 12 months in terms of facilities may look different to how it's looked in the last 3 years. We're just working through that with the TAs at the moment. And it's looking very likely that rather than new facility developments, the priorities are going to be around, you know, utilisation, rationalisation, amalgamation where needed, and putting bigger emphasis into supporting the community in that space rather than trying to build new facilities right now, especially given the funding landscape from a community perspective. In terms of the shovel-ready projects and councils putting forward projects into that, there are projects that have gone forward in the Bay of Plenty around sport and recreation. What we know, though, is that it's very unlikely, you know, that that fund is definitely set up to drive economic development. So in terms of sport and recreation, getting a slice of that pie, it's a very slim chance. However, the message is that from a sector response and recovery focus, it's going to be around grassroots, and it's going to be around getting our people back participating where they can. So that's kind of the focus at a community level, I guess. A big piece of work that's starting to open up now is annual plans. So Tauranga City Council have got their annual plan open at the moment for consultation. The other 5 district councils in the region are yet to open theirs. In terms of a Sport Bay of Plenty stance, and what we'll be trying to put forward through our annual plan submissions is all around accessibility, low cost, and trying to enable any opportunity where possible that I guess councils can support community into sport and recreation. So trying to remove as many barriers as possible and make it as accessible as possible at as little cost as possible. So what that looks like within each council might be slightly different, but you can rest assured that that's one thing we're going to be pushing very strong is right now the sporting community, sport and recreation community in the Bay need facilities to be accessible as possible for them to be able to enable their sport to take part. And also Sport New Zealand are going to be submitting to the Bay of Plenty annual plans as well with that exact same message is support your community, support your grassroots, and get people out on your fields and in your facilities in the best way you can as a council. In terms of the code collaboration and the season design work we're about to kick off, so thank you to everyone that got back to me on that. We have our initial first meetings next week. So winter code meeting is on Tuesday and summer code meeting is on Wednesday. And then on Friday, I have a TA forum with the different councils from around the region to update them on how we go in our meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then discuss any challenges, and then I can bring those challenges back to those groups the following week. So that's really good. It's great to see everyone jumping on board that and getting in on that opportunity. If you haven't had an invite to either the winter or summer codes, can you just send me an email directly, and I'll make sure that we get you to the right meeting. But in terms of that's sort of my update so far. The only thing I was just going to talk to around the Class 4 gaming and add to that is exactly what Heidi said. Sport New Zealand are obviously advocating to fill that hole. In terms of the gaming industry, they're a lot broader than just granting money to sport and recreation. So they have their association set up to, I guess, be lobbying for a recovery package for themselves. Most of the funders, the Class 4 funders, generally give about 40% back to community. So they're still going to be looking to, I guess, fill that gap that they need to with that other 60%. And that's the part that I guess becomes a little bit controversial within the public, and that's how it's always been with the sink and lid policies that councils have put in. So we just need to, make sure that we're advocating in the right spots to be filling that, I guess, that 40% gap and making sure that Sport New Zealand and central government are looking to fill that hole. And it's something that even from a local TA point of view, we're making the TAs well aware of the exact situation that it currently faces, that the sport and rec sector faces within their own districts as well. So our community sport teams are running some numbers at the moment on the amount of funding that went into clubs in 2019, and it's a pretty interesting figure, and it's a big hole, obviously, as you all acknowledge. So hopefully everyone can identify that hole exists and it needs to be filled and supported. And and it might not be financial investment, but it might be lowering user charges or not charging for fields or things like that. And that's the kind of work that we can now start to open up discussions with TAs to support the community. That's me, Clarky. So you're back on the mic.
Thanks, Zane. I'll just give you a little update now in and around Coach Force. So so basically, I'm in contact with the Bay Trust on a weekly basis, kind of providing updates of the current landscape and how it's evolving. Obviously very quickly at the moment, and that's obviously to provide transparency to them as much as we can along the way in this process. Bay Trust have been fantastic and given us the flexibility in the short and the medium term to support the coach force roles to maintain the workforce as best we can. The priority is to try and maintain that workforce. So what does that mean for the coach? Well, funding should still be coming to you during this time. And also the current coach force targets are now not necessarily a key focus, obviously, for you guys at this time. So specific outcomes we're waiving until kind of July the 1st, and then we'll kind of reassess it at that time. So, if they are able to provide some of the normal service, which I know some of them are, they're doing a lot of stuff out there. They've been very innovative in some of the work that they're doing. That's fine. They'll just record those as normal. But this keeping sport going basically allows you to utilise the coach force officers to do maybe some other tasks that they wouldn't normally do. We're not gonna be holding you accountable to the targets that are in place over this period of time. The trust have basically said that it's fine. You just need to do whatever you need to do. So if there are other roles that your coach force officers can assist with or help with at that time, then that's absolutely fine. But obviously, just discuss with us. Either let Trudy know or myself, kind of if there are any kind of major or specific changes, and particularly if you were looking, if you are under financial strain at the moment and you were looking to reduce the hours of the coach force staff in any way, please call us, let us know, and discuss that with us, so we can fully understand kind of what the implications are in and around the funding of that. So we just need to ensure that we're doing everything we can to try and help you where we can, but also that the trust to effectively support it going to be okay with some of the things that are happening. So please let us know if you are looking to do that. We're currently having a team meeting with them once a week, collectively, sharing ideas. We've also had psychologists on board to just talk them through how they manage themselves through this period and what they can do to help others and assist in the community. We're calling them individually on a kind of a week, 7 to 10 day basis as well, check in with them. And then probably from my internal team, we've sent out some wellbeing and athlete development stuff through our coaching passport. Trudy will be operating Development Coach Advance online Tuesday evening, I believe. And some of you were online with me last night with Wayne Goldsmith, where we held a big workshop with him last night, which went very well. So that's kind of what's happening in the Coach Force space at this time. I don't know if there's any questions on Coach Force at the moment? If not, we will move on to Calvin, who is joining us from the school sport team. Calvin, are you there?
Yeah, mate. Just just switched on my stuff. Yep.
Cool. Welcome to Calvin. Calvin's just recent father in the last few days, so he's dived in to give us an update on what's going on around the school sport space. Calvin.
Yeah, cheers. Haven't had a huge briefing, so hopefully what I update everyone on will be sort of useful and relevant. Clarky, I'm sure if I get off topic, you can give me a bit of a signal or cut me off, or maybe we can open some questions to keep it relevant potentially. But yeah, as Clarky said, I'm just coming off the back of a week and a half of leave. So my update could be relatively brief. But in saying that, probably the best thing to notify everybody of is each week, or well, it's been weekly, but it's was proposed fortnightly, that all the RSDs from around the country, along with School Sport New Zealand and Sport New Zealand, have been having some regular teams meetings just like this and talking about our events and our support to schools and just collaborating, which is really cool. Which brings me to, so yesterday was our latest one, and we got a lot of clarity from School Sport New Zealand, which regionally we'll look to align to, around, I guess, which alert levels will be able, or if it's be able to run school events safely and appropriately, if that makes sense. So our regional sports calendars, as hopefully all of you are aware, have been suspended up until May 15th. And I'm sure before that date, or well and truly before that date, hopefully we can make some calls on subsequent events. A lot of you guys will have been in touch with my team around those events, or hopefully they've been reaching out to you guys around assuming if you're the events that you help us run, if they fell within that window, or if they fall within the window of, say, the next school term, you will have, or hopefully you will be in contact with our team around just the decisions that we're making around those things. And thanks so much to everybody for being so open and supportive of our decisions. From what I understand, everyone's been really supportive and on the same page, which has made our decisions, I suppose, quite easy to make, I suppose. So coming back to the clarity that we got from School Sport New Zealand around the alert levels, it seems like no national school sport events, and they're working with NSOs on this, will take place until alert level 1. So even at alert level 2, it seems like on a national scale, there can't be any school events. On a regional level though, so like I said, we'll look to align with that, but on a regional level it seems, and this is all relatively speculative at the moment. We haven't actually gone through this. I haven't discussed this with Nick or my team yet, or with you guys yet. But I believe, assuming that we align with the limitations, there could potentially be some school sport events that could take place at alert level 2. The factors we'd need to consider would be the size of the event, and potentially the spread of the event, if that makes sense. So if it's a Bay of Plenty wide event, potentially that may not be able to take place because there's multiple schools and students coming from each of our 3 sub-regions. So you know, alert level 2 would hopefully be a continuation of some sub-regional events potentially. And again, this is all unconfirmed, and as we work through this, we will notify everybody. Alert level 2, hopefully we'll see some kids playing some sport potentially. And alert level 1 would probably see, you know, larger scale events, but whatever. But one thing I've got in my mind, and I'm starting to work on now that I've got my feet back under the desk, is at a secondary school level, potentially we may need to look at supporting and facilitating some intra-school sport opportunities, sport and physical activity opportunities, because kids may return to school before we're allowed to hold regional events or inter-school competition. Some of the regions around the country have been really innovative in how they've managed to sustain some a level, I suppose, of inter-school competition without actually meeting and playing each other, if that makes sense. So that's something that we're exploring, and obviously we'll keep everyone in the loop with how that might work, I suppose. But the predominant amount would be working with school teachers, school sport coordinators, directors of sport on that, as opposed to potentially, I don't know, my gut feeling is that external organisations coming into schools may not be able to take place for quite some time, potentially till alert level 1 as well. So yeah, so that's an update on schools, I suppose. Is there anything else you think I could be touching on, Dave? Or
I think just kind of just the school engagement. Would you describe that as having been quite mild at the moment?
Yeah, so obviously, given that the school holidays were brought forward, trying to do some remote school support proved to be, pretty, I would say, very limited. Only those devoted sport staff who were not teachers were responsive. And even in saying that, depending on each school sports staff member's home and family situation, that kind of dictated their availability to collaborate or to think strategically in this period of time. So yeah, a few schools we're working through and are doing some really, really awesome work and starting to I guess spend this rare window of no events and no teams going away or anything like that, to look at some of their systems and structures and their policies and procedures. But yeah, predominantly a lot of them were just adapting to life, much like we all were, just adapting to life working at home. A lot of them were spending the holidays as I won't use the word holiday, but yeah, they weren't focusing on work. Yeah, I'll jump to answering Ellie's question. Tell you what, I've actually got a document here. They've been a little bit funny. School Sport New Zealand have been a little bit funny about what we're allowed to tell people, so to speak. And I think some of that comes from the fact that they're still working through it themselves. But I want to make sure I've got the right stuff. I think towards the end of April, I just want to be quite careful here. I don't want to give anyone the wrong information. I know that they're working through what winter tournament week, or what could happen with winter tournament week. I know they're working through it at the moment, and they're following the reason why it's taking a little bit longer is, I guess on the one hand, things are evolving quite rapidly and we don't know what alert level we might be in at winter tournament week. But obviously they do want to get a stance out sooner rather than later, because obviously schools have booked accommodation and this and that and travel arrangements. but from what I can see, it seems like, and they're working with NSOs on this too, Ali, so potentially you could talk to Netball New Zealand. But at this stage, hopefully by May, they could have a stance on that, early May. One thing they are looking at in like their decision-making criteria for Winter Tournament Week is they need to look at the ability to play safely, if that makes sense. So those sports that could have an element of physical distancing and limited contact, and NSO's ability to implement health and safety and hygiene practices, those events will have a much more likely case to carry on. But that's not to say I don't think they are going to sort of single out and say, well, this code you can run your winter tournament, but those 3 codes, because you're a contact sport, you can't. I don't think they'll take that approach. I think they'll look to relatively blanket it, and if enough of the organizations can adhere to the conditions under that alert level, I suppose they would look at whether that could take place or not.
Thanks, Calvin.
Totally understand.
That's
yeah, it's hard. It's
hard
to provide a lot of clarity because it's it's just being worked on, and I mean, I guess I can assure this group that the work School Sport New Zealand are doing with NSOs and the information that they're filtering through to us to help us make decisions regionally is, in my opinion, is really impressive. Super professional. They're considering everyone's, they are a school entity, so they protect school interests, but they are considering this with a really wide outlook. And yeah, like I say, I've been super impressed with the thoughts behind their decisions. I think they're acting as quick as they can, which is all we can ask, I suppose.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Calvin. That's a good update at short notice.
Yeah,
and probably with a lack of sleep as well. We'll just move through now quickly through to Andrea, who's going to just talk about the external opportunities. Andrea.
Good, everyone. You're probably all aware of the opportunities that have been offered at the minute by Sport New Zealand and Active and Recreation New Zealand and all sorts of other things, and you're probably getting their newsletters, and that's all good. But there's just a couple of other things that you might find helpful. And one actually I came across yesterday. It's called Help Tank. It's a service that matches skilled volunteers with organisations who need something, especially in the COVID-19 environment. So it could be perfect for you guys or your clubs, particularly the smaller organisations. So that's anything from financial help to graphic designers to legal advice, to people help to a business mentor, anything like that. So I'll send out the link later, but it's if you email team@helptank.nz, and the organisation is called Help Tank. It's a charity that matches skilled volunteers, and you go on and you log what you need. You might want to put a wee brief there, but if it's just simple like legal advice on, on lease arrangements or anything like that, or insurance or whatever it is that you're dealing with at the minute, and then they match you up with a volunteer who's skilled in that area. Apparently, people have been getting a lot of help, a lot of free help that way. Another thing that's been really great in our business and also in other people that I've been talking to are the chambers of commerce, the Tauranga Chamber of Commerce, the Eastern Bay Plenty, and the Rotorua Chamber of Commerce. In fact, all of the Chamber of Commerce. If you sign up to their newsletters, they've got all sorts of webinars and help. You don't have to be a business. It's all sorts of things that are going on that you can log in. They're mostly free. And then, of course, there's Puna by Sport New Zealand, which is a leadership program designed for the sport and rec industry. It's really good, and you can go on there and if you or your team have got time, if you've got your team at home and they've got a little bit of time on their hands, you can get them going and working on their self-development. It's all free, it's really high quality, and it's self-paced, so they can work on there, and I can send that link out to you as well. And of course, last time I mentioned the EMA, the Employers and Manufacturers Association. If you haven't used that yet and you're needing some help around people stuff, then that's a superb resource for you as well. That's it, Dave, unless you've got, unless there are any questions.
Cool, thanks, Andrea. No questions for Andrea? Right, we'll move on quickly through the agenda now to Regional Funding Trust collaboration. So Catherine, if you'd like to just give us a little update there.
Yep, sure. Thanks, Dave, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, so really just to touch on to let you know that we are getting in touch with the local trust. So we had a meeting, Nick, Heidi and I, with Wayne and Alistair from Bay Trust and TECT the other day, which we'll continue to do fortnightly, also touching base with RECT. But they're very keen to know, basically get some insights about what's happening, you know, with the sport and rec sector and where the challenges and pinch points are. So we intend every fortnight to kind of be giving them aggregate information from what we're finding out from all of you and from clubs and recreation providers about, you know, what are the challenges and where their help will potentially be needed in the future. So obviously it's a bit of a timing thing. As we've talked about before, there is the national kind of recovery package. So waiting to see what might come out of that, and I guess they're kind of on standby to see how they can fill any gaps and help on a regional in a regional way. So I guess that's why, you know, any information or challenges or issues that you're having at the moment that you can continue to share with us is great, because then we can advocate on your behalf to those funders who are really willing to see how they can help out the sector, which is fantastic. So that's great. Shall I go on to the next bit, Dave?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'd like to just kind of go through how we're going to approach kind of this next little period.
Yeah, no, so our kind of recovery, I guess what Sport Bay of Plenty is going to be doing. So as I think might have been mentioned at the last one, you'll be aware Sport New Zealand had come out with a new strategy that was going to be relevant for 2020 to 2024. And we had put in a proposal, I guess, how we were going to work at Sport Bay of Plenty in the region to meet their strategy. That's all been put on ice, so that's obviously not relevant at the moment in the current environment. So what we're looking at with Sport New Zealand is the first phase is we've got a plan that's due on the 1st of May that we need to outline to Sport New Zealand. It's based on 3 key questions that we need to answer for them. Basically, how we as an organisation can maintain our business. One is about business capability, but I guess the main one is how we're going to respond regionally and locally with our critical organisations here to make sure that we can keep sport and rec going in this region. So it's quite a high level plan. We just need to let them know, you know, basically how we're going to respond at Sport Bay of Plenty, how we can be nimble and flexible and adjust to the changes that are needed. So that might mean looking internally at about our teams, might need to be more streamlined between what our teams do, you know, slight restructuring of how our staff work to make sure that we can respond in the best way and have the available human resource to where the priority areas are. So that's what we're working on at the moment. There will then be another plan that we'll need to give to Sport New Zealand. We're unsure about the timeframes yet, which will be for the next financial year. So basically kind of the gap until the next, till then hopefully the strategy, it could be appropriate for that to kind of kick back in again in a year's time. So, but the first step is just the next kind of 2 to 3 months. We need to let them know what our priorities are. So I guess that just finishing this bit, that's why it's kind of really important. Thanks to those who've sent in the surveys, and just welcome any more if you could fill those out, just so we can continue to understand what the main issues are. The things that are coming through at the moment are obviously the financial implications of this current period and funding, the seasonal kind of adaptations that might be needed between the winter and summer codes, like Zane touched on, and the need for us to work together and work with councils about how we can get through that. And then, like, again, we've talked about as well the alert levels. So just knowing practically what that means for each individual sport, what can be done. So, so yeah, we're continuing to gather that data and see where the common trends are and how we can help. So yeah, just as I said, keep sending those through, because that gives us great information and insights to then be working with our partners and advocate on your behalf. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Catherine. Do we have any questions for Catherine at all? No? Well, there's no more questions for Catherine. I might get, there is a question from Anna, which is something we've alluded to. So if Zane and Anna would like to just stay on, and we will finish up this meeting now. It has been recorded, so you will get the link sent through in terms of the recording, and there'll be something through from Nick and Andrea with the information that's been talked about in this meeting. So thanks very much, everybody, for your time, particularly in these. I know it's not easy at the moment out there for a lot of you, but as long as we all collaborate, stick together, we'll work our way through all of this time. So thanks very much, everybody, and we'll speak to you again shortly at the next meeting.